Hi there, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Pastor Stu's Book Review, where this week we're going to look at the book We Will Feast Rethinking Dinner, Worship, and the Community of God by Kendall Vanderslice. This was an interesting book. It focuses a lot on meals and the importance of meals throughout Scripture and throughout just church worship. Just really interesting stuff. Just a little bit about the author. Kendall Vanderslice is a writer and baker who studies the intersection of food and theology, which is really neat. She holds an MLA in gastronomy from Boston University and a Master's of Theological Studies from Duke Divinity School. She's authored things for Christianity Today, Christ and Pop Culture, Religion News Service, and Fathom. So she's written a lot, but this is her first book that she's put out. And I picked it up because it really, I'm big on like judging books by covers. Yeah, title is usually good too. But as far as this one goes, just the idea of dinner church was really interesting. Um, and it is a rising thing among churches, as I've encountered. So I was just curious to see what they had to say about this. Um, to begin with, as far as the basic information of the book, that's going to be listed at the bottom of the screen here, so you can see publisher information pages and all of that that's involved in it. As far as the way that it's broken down, really, it's broken down in the way that she pulled together all of the information. Each chapter focuses on a subject, for example, delight, beginnings, loneliness, dirt, neighbors, rest, and some other characteristics. And what she ended up doing was she went and traveled, spent a year traveling to visit these churches who had really developed these worship services around meals, tying in the reality that a lot of the biggest teachings in Jesus's life took place around the dinner table. You know, for example, when he ate with his disciples at the Last Supper, or the feeding of the 5,000, or the wedding at Cana. They were all these basic meal times that turned into very profound discussions of God and discussions of humanity. Not to mention the number of times that he sat down with the Pharisees and the tax collectors and sinners. So it's really interesting to see someone who has taken the time to tie in theology with food, which I thought was really interesting. Just some basic insights as far as the book goes. It's really interesting to see the creativity that goes into presenting church in a setting that's not your typical, let's sing some songs, let's preach a sermon, let's sing another song and go home. And it seems that the goal of these, as Kendall explains it, and as far as what she describes in each of the meals, is to really level the playing field based on the very basic of human need, which is food for survival. This idea of church and worship was really built around this idea to say, when we come to the table, we're all on the same playing field. There is no authority as we understand it. While there's still pastors and things like that that kind of oversee it and may lead in a discussion or bring elements of worship into it, it's not a typical you sit and listen to the pastor while he or she talks for 20-30 minutes or more. It's focused more on engaging in dialogue, in sharing stories and sharing life together. Throughout the book, there's a lot of things there that are really interesting. They focus on reaching out to the marginalized, those people that have pushed out of society and aren't viewed as equals for one reason or another, whether it's lifestyle or whether it's background or whatever it might be, and how the table brings everyone together in that. They talk about the unity of Christ and the importance of that when it comes to the body and what it looks like to be unified at meal times. And it focuses on how these meal times help to deal with loneliness and help to deal with just really any kind of difficulties that people may have. In all, it's really interesting. And while I wish I could offer Really specifics as far as highlights go. The book really is focused on explaining what these churches look like, how they play out, how they impact the communities that they're in. But really, what I appreciated was actually at the end, um, that Kendall comes right out to say, while these are ways that some churches have really implemented a different way of worship, it's not the way to do it. She simply wanted to offer some insight into different ways to handle worship. I thought that was really interesting is just at the end, she mentions how, not to make things about race or anything like that, but the difference between your typical um, Caucasian church versus like an African American cultured church is the fact that most predominantly white churches are finally coming around to this idea that worship around a meal is something that should be part of community. It should be part of a regular routine, where it's been part of other cultures, where the meal is the most important part of the night or the day, and worship time should be involved in that. And a lot of these churches that she mentions in this book tie in this idea of tying in the Lord's Supper, so the elements of the bread and the wine or grape juice or whatever it might be for your different connections or different theological upbringing. Um, so it was really interesting to read through this and to see a different way for church to be done. And basically, what she lays out is this reality to say, get to know your community, get to know the people that are in the town, the neighborhood, the city, wherever you're at, and offer something that connects in a very real way to those who may be outcast. Don't put any expectation as far as, you can come to our meal, but you have to hear a gospel message or you have to hear our spiel about being saved. They drop all of that pretense, they drop all of that pressure, and just say, you're going to come together, we're going to eat. And if you feel like you want to stick around for the discussions and for the worship time, feel free to do so. But if you want to just leave. So there's that freedom there that doesn't force anyone into it. The environment is different in different churches, whether it's being held in the basement of a church or at a diner. And it was really interesting to see these ideas laid out. And for someone who's spent so much time, it seems, in connecting theology to food, both very important aspects of our lives, the theology aspect dealing with our spiritual necessity and nurturing, and food, which deals with physical nurturing and necessity. So, as far as this book goes, I recommend it highly. And for a first book, from what I've seen, I understand she's done some writing for other magazines. This is a really well put together work. It's proofread well, which if you've watched my other videos, I really appreciate that. And the ideas are great, just to help you think outside of the box. And so, as far as who I would recommend this to, I would definitely recommend it to any church leader or church attendance, church congregant member that is really stuck. Maybe things have gotten dry, maybe things have gotten a little redundant in terms of life and ministry and worship, and you want to do something a little different. This is one case of what it could look like to be different. So I would definitely recommend this if you've got the time to pick it up. And once again, it is We Will Feast, Rethinking Dinner, Worship, and the Community of God. So I definitely encourage you, if you have the opportunity, give it a read, because it's definitely well worth it. That's going to do it for this review. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Is this something that you've read? Have you practiced dinner church with people in your congregation or in your church? Let me know in the comments below with regards to that. As far as looking ahead, next week our focus will be the Teen's Guide to Social Media and Mobile Devices. 21 tips to wise posting in an insecure world. Something I believe is very relevant to youth ministry. So we're going to take a look at that. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, click that like button and subscribe button to offer support for the channel. And we will catch you later. So until then, keep the faith and remember, you're deeply cherished. Blessings to you all.